Welcome everybody to the Roseland Exchange. That was weird. Well, welcome everybody back to the Roseland Exchange. It is me, Roseland, here with episode 3 of the Creative Build series, where we are approaching the Cathedral. Now, I've been working on this a lot since the last time that you saw it, and we've solved a few problems, including the design for the main archway, and we might have found a good enough solution for the redstone for now. So, as we pull here into the station, I'll be back and show y'all what I've been working out. So last time, we figured out that these homebrewed redstone kind of item readers were a little bit too janky to actually do the job for memory for the music. So I came up with a little bit of a piston tape system. This uses the comparator reading through a block and a cauldron to indicate if there is in fact a signal or not. Now what's useful about this particular system and why we add all of this extra stuff onto it is because before, whenever we were to move between two yes blocks, we wouldn't get a new pulse out of the end. The downtime on this comparator was actually too short to notice it. So we added an observer, a repeater to lengthen the pulse, and then we have our little bit of an AND gate, not gate, kind of a thing. So we actually still get a pulse sent out the end. We combine that with a bit of a vertical redstone line, and we created something that might just do the job. So, to begin with, we are going to start with the AND gate kind of a thing here, and we will go on from there. So I already have a couple blocks here. More specifically, this block has a redstone torch under it. That's going to be our output. As we grab some redstone dust, put that there. It's not going to burn out in the rest of the system, because instead we're going to put a torch and it's going to be on all the time. Bam. Alrighty. Sure, this is kind of hilariously straightforward since I'm building them right next to each other, but the big details are things like this repeater has to be on 2. This observer up above is looking down into this observer, which is actually doing double duty, sending this pulse into the redstone and sending the pulse that goes back around the redstone line. We're going to take the piston tape down and around the corner. That's going to be the beginning of our piston tape. And then we're going to go back up to this spot right here. Now, as far as the rest of the system, we are using these small units of 3 blocks that will move the piston tape around. Now, it's my understanding that you can make this piston tape as big as you want within the realm of the options presented there. I actually have been putting comparators here and observers because sometimes piston tapes like this can get out of sync, especially if the user is doing something they're maybe not supposed to be doing, i.e. me messing up pretty continuously. So we have it set up like this. This comparator will be reading out of here, which is where the cauldron is going to be sitting. And we set up this, and there's going to be a torch that goes here. And I've been trying to find a way to actually shrink down this system, but I have yet to figure out a good way to do it. I think that maybe changing this cauldron out with something else that's sending a signal through the block would do the job. But I like how open currently this little bit of a hallway is, and I think that this is really going to help with the whole user interface idea. So this is pretty much it. Now we're just going to connect it to our line with some redstone. I'm using repeaters on all of these just to push it into the block, though I'm sure it just kind of goes in there. And that's kind of it down here. Like I said, we have these lined up around, and you saw we have another setup of these. The observer is looking into this, and then this one is looking down, and then it's sending the signal up into the piston. And we have the same up above, and that's the detail. Then we just add a cauldron, use a bucket to fill it up with some water, and that is a working piston tape line. Now, these can be controlled with a little bit of a glass, like I have over here, and solid blocks. And really you can pick whatever colors you want to actually make it happen. I'm just using the granite and the red glass along with the wool because it's aesthetically contrasty, and eventually I'm going to want to change it. So I'm not going to put prettier blocks in there quite yet. As far as the orange shirt or the purple terracotta, a friend of mine has been programming over at the lab with the purple terracotta in particular. No particular reason to change that up quite yet. Now for the actual instrument lines that we have going up, we have it set up so that we have a line of note blocks which is sending updates to a series of observers. These are actually going to go through the rail, and we'll stop right there. Our setup for having them go around the corner is actually to put a dollop of redstone up here. This is going to mute this block, still allowing the signal to go through as quickly as it needs to. Here you could have it go into a note block and then have another observer go into a note block and then observe down, but that's a little bit too wide, too much needless space. Instead, we're just going to power this block, which is going to power this note block, which is going to send the signal down. As far as the actual instruments, we're putting them on the sides, and that seems to work for right now. There's a little bit of delay going on with the observers as they go across, but it's not really anything problematic. And as long as you put your redstone up top, this line at least should work reasonably well. There is a bit of delay, and if we come over here you can see that we have it almost set to work perfectly. Sometimes a little bit of lag will cause a hitch, and then this pulse will come a little bit too early, like it did there. It kind of overlapped, but it seems to work reasonably well. I don't know how complicated we're necessarily going to get. I don't know if we're going to need full-on 12 lines with memory, but there's the chance to make something pretty big with this. And here we're just going to replace every other block with a note block, which is just really a way to make it cheaper and to help indicate to the person programming where the correct place is to drop a note. And like I said, up here you drop some redstone. Here we actually have a note block there, dollop of redstone on top, and we go our way down here with more note blocks. Yeah, and that's all that I'm doing with those note lines. The scaffolding is just kind of shoved in there. I haven't quite figured out how to easily use the scaffolding mechanics. As you can see, there's some less than expected ones over here. But yeah, so this is our solution to the redstone problems from the previous episode. It's still gonna be a challenge to make it really work well, but I don't know, I'm kind of proud of it as a first kind of major redstone system that I've been working on. Up here is where I've been spending the rest of my time, working out these archways and the hallways up here. So it's curious, the whole perspective changes once you're up here, and it looks a little bit more homey. You can see the towers a little bit better. You can see this column goes all the way through, and it will over here. I'm thinking about putting a flat top on this that is more glass. That'll do some more fun things to the colors and shapes going on here. But as you can see here, this is kind of the process or the rules that I'm following to do it. We have the bottom 2 layers with smooth quartz, and then we're using glass for the following 2 that are rimmed in sandstone, and then from here we just build the archway out of white glass. So yeah, it's been a bit of troubleshooting, but it seems to do the job pretty well. I've added some headers and footers to the columns. There's also, you can see how I'm going about replacing with that pillar, which isn't quite done. But we have our walkways up here, as I'm assuming that at some point somebody will have to get up here to do some more programming, and I haven't put the scaffolding all the way up. So yeah, there's going to be doorways, and there's going to be ladders to go down. I like the catwalks, because you also have it open up to this area, which is free to have a roof over it, and I think that there's design space for that. In here, I'm having some difficulty figuring out if I want to close this archway down over the other side, because I like this kind of angle to the instrument and being able to see up into the higher areas over there. In regular cathedrals, there would be the archways are actually much more shallow than this. I'm really not representing it terribly well by having this archway that goes all the way to the floor. This huge smooth curve is not quite right, but we keep repeating it kind of everywhere, and it really works for this upper area. So I'm thinking that we're going to keep this slope on the outside, and we're actually going to punch into it with more arches. So we still have our vertical wall here, but we have some cool shapes as far as the actual supports. Sorry for all the shaking the mouse around there. Yeah, as far as the main doors, we have this one back here, which is a curious, like, fractal idea on the archway. But for each of these, I was thinking about doing a slightly different design. That way you could tell where you were from the center of the building more easily. Something denoting north, maybe, having like an N up over there, east over there, south, west. I feel like that would be interesting. There's also the possibility of doing something following the moon and the sun through the sky, which would be curious, and a good reason to keep this glass ceiling, honestly. And so that's the idea. This entire system over on this kind of half of the building should actually fit perfectly fine in this platform. So we're actually going to have 2 of these next to each other. And maybe there's a chance to hook it up so that we have 24 lines of memory running a whole ton of instruments where people stand kind of here in the center and get to listen to it. There is a little bit of an issue with the distance. Of course, the note blocks up at the top are much further away from the player character than these down at the bottom. And that will have some interesting effects on the sound. That might not be what we end up wanting. We might end up changing this whole thing. So that's why I actually have it so separated, right? This entire unit underneath just sends a signal to basically this note block. And as long as you drop an observer on it or whatever you want, really, you can take this and do whatever shape you want with the actual redstone. So very separate pieces, separate systems, makes it easy to actually work on. So yeah, I think I'm going to keep on working, and I'll come back to you when we've made some more progress on the design for the actual building. Guys, it has been a hot second since the last time I looked at this, and I hate to say it, but there's been some progress. A considerable amount of progress, in fact. The first issue that I was running across was that the redstone that I have below wasn't quite doing the job. You can see that we even have some new lines. But let me show you that particular change before we get into some of the more construction aspects. In the previous clip, I showed you how to build this completely differently. Yeah, so unfortunately the old idea that we had, where you have like a full diag that's going up here, and then you have a bit of redstone that is directly powering this note block, along with the torch that's underneath it, and the redstone torch that's powering this comparator and the redstone block below. Well, it just causes a lot of issues there. So I actually had to push back the whole thing and compress this little piece. I mean, this is all it is. Under here we do have a torch because we're using that block to power this redstone. But here, for example, we're just using dots so that the torch is the only thing that's being powered. And well, this change has made the whole thing kind of come to life. It all of a sudden, it seems to work relatively well. You can tell there's some issues with the lag for servers and that kind of thing, because sometimes a loop will finish a little bit too early or a little bit too late, depending on what the lag is doing. But yeah, so this is not an inconsiderable change. It has done a lot to make this actually work. At one point I was trying to push the actual music line out through this wall and into the actual cathedral. Out over here, it was breaking into this kind of line of columns and then like coming back around and going back in. That was just unnecessary. The changes down there made sure that that would function correctly. I have also added a little tiny bit of a listening spot, which keeps you far enough away from the pistons for them to not be audible, and close enough to all of all of the note blocks so you can actually hear it. And I have gone ahead and programmed half of Peacheezy's kind of music from the lab over to the north of us, and it actually sounds like something, so that's pretty cool. Let's listen. We don't have an indicator for when we're done. Usually you just have to use your ears. Might have to work on that. Showing a little, like, a ready light that might be able to come out of this system over here. That could be interesting. Well, anyways, that is the system. If it didn't go through, I'll record it again so that we can actually get it get it to be in that spot. What I've done here is at the bottom of the line I've put a reference block of the material that is being used in that line. You can see this is the kick drum, so you have 4 kicks. Snares, you got the sand held up with half slabs, the wood, and then we're going to have some 8-bit chords here, and you can put the chords all the way around the block, so you can do up to 4 notes at a time, I think, and there's enough room here so that you're actually not going to be interfering across the 2 lines, which is pretty cool. I did get rid of the scaffolding that was living in here. It was making it really awful and confusing to try to actually program, so we might need to find a better survival solution, maybe along the outside, but we'll see. I also think that there might be some changes to like the design here, so you actually have some kind of measurement. You can actually see what a measure is. Like this is technically every other beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's the back on the 1. But yeah, we'll have to figure out exactly how to do that. As far as more construction on the actual building goes, I've been working a lot on the roof. It's been the part that's been concerning me the most, as far as actual progress is concerned. Mostly because real cathedrals have a flat top, up here, and there is empty space in these sections. And I've been trying to think of ways to still make the building look nice and bright in the Minecraft game, but still kind of pay homage to the designs of the cathedrals that I'm basing it off of. So that's kind of how this is going. The central nave seems to be cleared up. I'm gonna have to be figuring out the lower hallways soon to figure out how to put the external music line rooms where you can program smaller music than these big old chunky organs, basically, that we're putting in these two spots. We have the walkways up here, which will be connected to the ground floor with some kind of staircase elevator thingamajig, which will be nice. And yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. It technically works. This does play music now, which is kind of amazing to me. We have been having these guys get caught, these phantasms get caught in the building because it's so tall, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so that's where we're at right now. I want to thank y'all for watching. I think this thing is coming along pretty well, and I hope to see you in the next one. Make sure to do the liking and subscribing and all that good engagement stuff, and see you next time. Bye.